Hey guys, I'm here with a patron asking a question. If you guys aren't aware, for our Patreon rewards for is it $10 and above? Yeah, I think it's $10 above. You can have a conversation, whether it's private, one on one, or with some of the Lola guys if they're available to just talk about whatever questions you have or whatever you want to talk about. Here I have with me Woppy Floppy. Hey Woppy.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good, good. So let's get into it. What's your question, man?
Well, I started playing in the beginning of season six.
Mm-hmm.
I started playing support because I got auto-filled there, so I just stuck with it. And everyone knows it's hard to climb a support in solo queue. Switched to top, and I'm just not, I don't know, I'm not feeling comfortable with any role I'm playing right now. I just don't know how to climb without just playing a tank and then just falling or not being able to do anything because I'm a tank. I can team fight, but in low elo, no one knows what to do.
Okay, so I guess you're just looking for some help when it comes to this final push in this rank season, basically.
Yeah,
And you said you're like silver three, two?
yeah, silver three.
Okay, and you're trying to get to gold, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you don't know what role you want. You're kind of like in limbo when it comes to like what you're maining and what you want to climb with, right?
Yeah, I'm usually just queuing as top support, and if I get top, I usually play Shin, Renekton, something of the such, and during bot lane, I usually just spam Thresh.
Gotcha. Um. Oh yeah, Thresh is a bit of a hard one because he's a super hard playmaker, right? But you
Yeah.
also need your team to follow up on anything you do. So I think
Yeah.
when it comes to supporting, my opinion on supporting low elo, because my experience supporting low elo is like playing a mage support and carrying, so it's not exactly the best thing. And I know Blake, the way he's kind of carried up as well is just being really good and consistent, and then eventually kind of like duo queuing with someone that's able to really follow up on his plays. So that's one thing I might suggest is finding a good duo queue partner that you can trust to carry a game, that you can kind of support him and use the advantages you can gain as Thresh.
Hmm.
Because yeah, you can hit the craziest flash flay, hooks, box, and everything. If no one follows up or no one sees that you're doing that, like that's super unfortunate. I think eventually if you grind out a ton of games, like that will show and you'll climb if you're good with Thresh. Because again, Thresh is a really tough champion to play with. So you might feel like you're playing well with him or doing or a good Thresh, but it might not be good enough to win. And that doesn't mean you're not good enough to be in gold. It just might be you might not be good enough to carry yourself with Thresh from silver to gold. Because I think you have to be like higher than gold 5 to get into gold 5, especially if you're playing a support by yourself,
Yeah.
especially like a supportive support, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Um, so
when
I'm
it
looking at my op.gg,
okay,
and
let's
I'm
open that.
actually I never realized I had such a high win rate with Karma. I actually have a 71% win rate with Karma over 38 games.
Over 30 games.
38.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Why'd you stop playing, or any idea?
I just started playing more top and just play Shin and Renekton, and then just it doesn't work out playing Shin because he's definitely not really a solo queue champ.
Yeah, it's always nice to have communications when you're playing a top lane, top lane Shen. That's for sure. Yeah, that's a bit tough. Um, I like you mentioned you played Renekton as well, right?
Yeah.
I like the Renekton pick because he's pretty much known as a lane bully and he wins a lot of lane matchups.
Hmm.
So I like that one. I think that's a good champion to pick if you kind of want like you want the game to be in your hands and in your control, right? Like you mentioned, tank champions are a bit hard because you still rely on your teammates to do the damage because you don't bring that, right?
Yeah.
And Renekton, the great thing about Renekton is you have flexibility, right? You can build really squishy AD if you wanted to, if you're like super hard carrying the game and the enemy team comp and your team comp allows for it.
Hmm.
You could play a bruiser style, which is probably the most common way, where you just build like Black Cleaver, Titanic, or just sit on Tiamat for a while and then build whatever defensive stats you need, right?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you could just go. I think you could probably build Black Cleaver and straight up tank if you need to. If like things are going really poorly, like you lose lane or something, you could probably skip Black Cleaver and just be tank and try to kill. I don't know if you'd build pure tank without Black Cleaver. Black Cleaver is pretty core on him.
Yeah,
Um,
you need the cleaver.
Yeah, so I like Renekton pick, and I'm playing Renekton a lot right now, and also Wormlax. He plays a lot of Renekton. We did the Champion Overdrive podcast with him where we talked
Yeah.
about Renekton. So I would suggest listening to that if you haven't yet.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely listened to
Okay, good, good.
it.
Um, Other than that, I want to talk about my opinion on carrying as a tank. Did you Were you the one that wrote in on Facebook
Yeah.
about the question? Okay,
Yeah.
so did you listen to that episode and hear what I think Worm talked about it? What he had to say about that?
Yeah.
What'd you think about it, or what you
Yeah.
get from it? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's about how it should be. I just, like I said, just in low elo, you get that problem of, you just got to rely on your carries to do it. And then it's low elo. People pick champs they played like twice and expect to go into ranked and just go for it.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's interesting because for me, back when I climbed in season 3, I picked Maokai jungle and I built him pure tank, and I was able to climb really well with him. And I think the strength of a tank to actually quote unquote carry is to peel for your carries or to kill the 80 carry in the backline, because tanks can be super broken if you build like certain items on them. Because I've been in a situation where Shen has been able to 1v1 like an 80 carry just because he's doing pretty well. He has Sunfire and he has like Titanic Hydra. So a lot of, and Thornmail, right? So you have a lot of these items that actually deal damage while giving you tank stats. So I think that's something you can look into. It might not be like super core to your build, but then again, you might not have to build perfectly the way that 95% of people play it or build that champion if it makes sense, especially to what you're trying to do, right? So if you're a Shen that has is it his W that gives him blocks to auto attacks?
Yeah.
You have that. You have a Sunfire if you're able to stick on, like, let's say an Ashe, right? Because you have, she doesn't really have super hard CC except an arrow, and if you get hit point blank, it really doesn't stun you that long. You have she doesn't have mobility, so you can stay on her, you can taunt her, and you can burn and then Thornmail her too. So I think that's another way to play, where you just straight up like dive the back line. If nothing you can do, you can't save your team from that team fight. So I would look into like that in your play. And then, like I said, peeling. If your 80 carry is fed, right? 80 carry doesn't have to do anything but really right click. So I feel like there's only so good they can be. Or if their skill's not good, there's only so much they can do. They just right click. So if they're caught, it's all about positioning, right? So if they're caught, they're dead. If they're not caught, they just wreck the team fight. So as long as you can keep them alive and fix their mistakes from getting caught, like they should be able to deal the damage. And that's what I saw in my games when I was playing Maokai, because all I did was I engage a fight with W or something, and then I would immediately back off and let my team follow up on that engage, and then just sit on my 80 carry while they counter engage. And because Maokai has ridiculously short cooldowns, I just got my Q and like knocked up the Riven when she came in, and then at the time I popped my ult, which reduced damage, but that doesn't happen anymore. But you can still use your ult to stop the counter engage, or at least slow it down. So I think that's one way that people don't understand how to play tanks. They just kind of initiate. They can't get to the backline, and they're kind of stuck in the middle, or they go way too far in their initiation. And also, your team doesn't follow up on that initiation, and then you just get like bursted down even though you're super tanky. You kind of want to take like big spells. You don't want to take 100% of the damage, because you'll get melted before your team can still contribute, and then they get scared even though the enemy team wasted all their cooldowns. You still have your cooldown, or your team still has their cooldowns, but they're scared because you're almost dead, so they run away, which really sucks, right? And that's something that's, I don't think, understood at a very high elo place, where people aren't necessarily tracking cooldowns that well, and they just look at health bars where enemy team has higher HP than us, so we're going to lose this fight, rather than thinking about they bursted us, now they can't do anything for 10 seconds, and now this is the time that we're supposed to deal damage. Right, and that's a really complicated thing that I don't think a lot of people can do, because I don't think they're able to. They don't have the situational awareness to be able to do that. I don't have the situational awareness to do that. So that's another way you can do. I think you can carry with tanks, and I'm not sure if that was said on the podcast. because I wasn't on that episode and I haven't listened to it yet. Is that helpful at all?
Yeah, I think another problem I'm really facing too if I play tanks top is, especially if I play Shin, because playing Shin top lane, you're just more than likely you're just gonna lose that lane because you have some early damage, but with a lot of people just end up playing hard carries or people that are just gonna win the laning phase. Like I see a lot of Tryndamere.
Okay.
I don't see Renekton that much. I see a Fiora every now and then, but things that generally aren't you don't want to play a tank into, but
Gotcha.
I can't play. Yeah, but then if you give them a kill, 2 kills, you just your lane's over.
Yeah, the way I see things for you right now is that I think you're doing all right. Thresh is your highest played champion. You have a 54% win rate on him, so that is, if you're able to have 200 games, like, you will climb, right? Assuming that win rate stays the same. Shen is the same way. Even though you feel like you're not having impact, you're still winning 56% of your games, which is still a good win rate. Since we're almost at the end of the season, you want someone that has like a 75% win rate or a 70% win rate. So that would be Karma and Renekton on your list. Karma has a good amount of games. Your Renekton seems a little bit newer with 12 games, but that's still like 75% is not bad at all. So I would continue playing. I would play Shen and Renekton in the top lane, prioritizing Renekton unless you feel like Shen is just a significantly better matchup. Let's say you have like a Kog'Maw on your team or something, and you just realize it's a protect the Kog'Maw comp or something like that, or protect the Jinx comp. Like, I would consider probably taking Shen or taking Renekton and just peeling kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, even your low win rate champions, those are mostly champions that you haven't played much. So I wouldn't. Yeah, I guess the only thing you should be worried about right now is like, can you grind the amount of games you need to hit Gold 5, to fail promos a few times, stuff like that. But for the most part, I think your win rate's decent enough where you just need to grind out those games, right?
Yeah. I think I get down to, like, if I lose a game, I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna fall down to the division down. I'm like, then I'm gonna get on the downward spiral, and I just don't. I think I get to a point where I just don't want to risk it.
Sure. So how are you dealing with like tilt? Do you think you're dealing with it well?
I think I do fine with it. And if I have to, I'll just mute all. But if I lose 2 or 3 games more in a row, then I won't play ranked for 3 or 4 days. I just get kind of down about it. I'm like, man.
Oh man.
Like, I know, like, I did well. My team didn't do well. And I know I can't control my team, but it's just like, I don't want to run the risk of getting just another bad team. Or
okay. I think, again, looking at your stats, like, even the games you lost and you won, I don't see anything scary. I don't see like a 0-10 game, even in your losses. I mean, I don't see too many games for some reason on your op.gg, which is really, maybe I have to update it. But yeah, even in your losses, you look like you're not feeding super hard. Like, I think 0-2 is perfectly fine. That's not feeding. And even there's a lot of context that you don't see in op.gg, so those could be that could have been a really tough lane. You just got killed twice in lane, but you did well contributing to the rest of the game. How do you feel about your macro?
I think I'm more of a better macro player than I'm a micro. I'm not super good during laning phase. Like, I mean, the other day I lost lane as Renekton to a Shin. Like, he just level 2, level 3 killed me. And I'm just, I don't know. For some reason, I couldn't beat the Shin in lane.
Okay.
Thanks to macro play, we won that one.
Good. So, how do you think you're being proactive with like leading your team in macro decisions?
I try to be.
Okay.
Usually, I can end up getting people listen. I'm more of a reserve player. I don't like, if we got a tower, maybe even 2 towers. Like, it's like, oh, we got the enemy tower. Let's push for the enemy. I'm like, no, let's let it go. We got the tower.
Mm-hmm. Do you ping that stuff out?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Good.
I'm the spam pinger.
Yeah, especially if you feel like your macro is better than everyone else's. I feel like in games where I'm quiet, I don't really see people leading. I just see people complaining about things that they shouldn't have done, right? Yeah, so if you're pinging, telling people to take objectives or pinging off objectives, I think that's huge. And as a top laner, especially if you're playing someone tankier, like, look for those teleport plays. I think that's really important. Like, lose your lane, not super hard. You definitely don't want to lose your lane really hard to like a Jax that can just eventually split push and then 1v1 you anytime after that. But, as a Shen, just find ways to teleport or ult in to the bot lane to get that double kill, to get dragon, get first turret, those kind of things. I think that's really important to, as a top laner, to be proactive in your teleports and to like actively look for plays instead of just winning your lane really hard, because as a tank you don't win your lane really hard unless they really screw up or you have a really good matchup or something like that. So that's another thing to worry about or think about. I would also think, since again it's the end of the season, it's not time to really learn a ton.
Yeah.
So I think you should actively be learning. You should find something in your play that you're really good at that you can like double down on, and like let's say you're decent at teleporting, like double down, do some research on teleporting and get like really, really good at it. Or find something you're really, really bad at and like focus on that a little bit. But I wouldn't go like work on your macro, work on your teleports, work on CSing, work on lane match. Like don't overload what you're trying to learn, and worry about just performing in each and every game, right?
Yeah.
But I think you can still learn. You still have time to learn. It's not like next week. So you can put little bits there and take the losses as losses. Like, I lost lane because of a bad matchup. That's fine. Don't worry about it. You're not invested in there. And it's kind of a roll of the dice situation where it's like, if it's a bad matchup, you're probably going to lose. Maybe you could dodge if you run into those situations. But I would really focus on what you're good at, doubling down on that, and try to touch a little bit on some weaknesses that you can really easily fix quickly without spending 10 normal games to get better at. Right? So learning a new champion is a thing that you probably shouldn't do at the end of the season. Unless it's like, hey, Annie's really, really strong in the top lane and she's simple to play, and I played her. She was my most played champion in season 5, so it'll be easy to pick up. Unless you're in that kind of situation, I would just double down on what you're doing already and just get a little better, and then just focus on performing in your game on what you know how to do already.
Okay.
Helpful?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, cool. So again, this is kind of just a short thing that we're doing. I'll be doing this with patrons periodically throughout the month, and some of these we'll post it onto our YouTube channel and our RSS feed, depending on what storage space we have for things. But thanks for joining me, Woppy. Thanks for bringing some awesome questions.
Thanks for being here, man.
All right, see you guys later.
See ya.